As I mentioned, going into the break, the August recess is over and Congress is back. A lot of work to do as they move toward the November election, but a lot of political boxes they want to check. So what can we expect from Congress between now and the election? Well, here to tell us more about it, Travis Weber, Vice President of Policy and Government Affairs. Travis, welcome back to the program.
Thank you.
Okay, so what is at the top of their agenda?
Yeah, so obviously we've been focused on the what they're calling the Respect for Marriage Act. It's actually the Disrespect for Marriage Act. This is the attempt by Congress to codify, put in legislation, same-sex marriage, repeal the Defense of Marriage Act. And as we know, this has a host of problems for religious liberty. So Family Research Council has been at the front end of ensuring that everyone knows the problems we have with this bill and ensuring that it is not successfully passed Congress for a host of reasons that we've seen unfold over the past number of years, Tony, since same-sex marriage was constitutionalized by the court. A number of other things on our issues, but that's kind of the one we're leading off with in September.
Yeah, it could come this week. There's some discussion now. They know they're going to have some difficulty with this because, folks, quite frankly, you've been doing your job. I know this because I've talked to some senators and some congressmen who have heard from you during the break that, look, you don't want this. You know the threat that this poses to religious freedom, and so you've been communicating with that. And some of them are hearing. But we got to continue that message of the threat that this is, among many things, but religious freedom is really at the top.
Yeah, I mean, Tony, we've seen this unfold over the past number of years. Small businesses being put under the gun by governments, forcing them to compromise their faith in order to continue operating, the threat to nonprofits, religious schools. The tax exemption issue is key here because as President Obama, Solicitor General, reminded us all at oral argument in Obergefell, it's going to be an issue if the court went ahead and constitutionalized same-sex marriage, which it did. So if this bill passes, it would lend fuel to the fire for those claiming that there is a national public policy on same-sex marriage because it's legislatively passed, very different from the court's erroneous decision that we've been living with, but false, unconstitutional decision that claimed
right.
There's a constitutional right. Here, the people's representatives are passing a law. That's why this is very concerning. And then that's going to be used to threaten tax-exempt status.
It will accelerate what we've seen over the last 7 years since the Obergefell decision, where people, the left will say, hey, we have the Congress behind us on this.
Right.
And so anyone who does not celebrate and embrace same-sex marriage, it's legitimate to go after them.
Right.
It's open season on those bigoted mega Republicans.
Well, and as President Biden reminded us, the issues that we all care about, issues of concern to social conservatives, life, family, and freedom, are squarely in the sights of our political opponents. This bill is exhibit number one. We're going to see more of that, though. You have Democrats on the House side claiming they need female veterans to show up and testify to the need for abortion services. We've seen the Biden administration ignoring the law and claiming to implement a final interim rule that will allow for abortion furtherance through the Veterans Administration and, in some cases, on VA facilities.
So on this marriage bill, what they call the Respect for Marriage Act, folks, you need to call your senators and tell them to oppose this. And they're doing some things to try to overcome the opposition. One is they're working on a couple of amendments to address religious freedom. Those are hollow efforts because religious freedom, a lot of them are going to try to carve out for religious institutions, churches, so churches won't be forced to do. The First Amendment is not for institutions, it's for individuals. And there is this clash, and we've seen it. I do not see a way to reconcile true religious freedom, the ability to live your faith, with codifying a redefinition of marriage into federal statute.
Tony, there's a host of problems with this, and we've only been able to touch on a few of them here. But we have all these in our materials at frc.org/defendmarriage. But as you noted, it's a right that goes across society. So people in the workplace, small business owners, religious schools, other religious nonprofits, in addition to churches and the ability of pastors and congregations to exercise their faith. These are all areas of religious freedom concern, and there is a conflict that has been set in motion by the push to legitimize and claim in policy that we are going to advance and support this right. And now anyone opposed standing in opposition to that is their rights are being overridden.
Yeah, so don't buy any of the stuff that these amendments are going to fix the problems. And so the switchboard number to the U.S. Capitol to talk to your senator, 202-224-3121. That's 202-224-3121 to contact your member of the Senate. Now, one of the other tactics that we're hearing about is they may connect it or attach it to the continuing resolution for funding, which funds the government.
Yeah, so Tony, I mean, as we know, we need the federal government needs to pass funding authorizations by the end of September. This could be something that happens where they say, well, we're going to try to attach this to the funding bills to get it passed. Still, obviously unacceptable, whether a standalone vote or attached to funding bills.
All right, Travis Weber, I know you're going to keep an eye on that and keep our folks informed.
All right, will do.